Hi, I'm Hugh Barry, reading for the role of Ben.
Hi, I'm Telisa Steen, and I'm reading for the role of Selena.
Hi, I'm David Nance, and I'm reading the parts of Jimmy/Padre.
I'm Laurel Elizabeth Dennis, reading the role for Frankie.
Hi, I'm Johannan Gabriel, reading for the role of George.
I am Mathew Stull, doing the roles of Phil and Norm.
Hi, I'm Kendra McDermott, reading for the roles of Beth, Susie, and the producer.
I'm Laurel Paxton. I'm reading the roles of Lillian, Sarah, and Edith.
Hello, my name is Edgar Martinez. I am reading for Ronnie, Jarvis, Gonzalez, and Man in the Restaurant.
Hi, I'm Rohish Deshmukh, and I'm reading for Dante, Anson, Ravi, and Cardinal Laurel.
I'm Jeff Scott, and I'm the narrator.
Hi, I'm Chris Scott, and I'll be reading the roles of John, Al King, Will the Weatherman, and the Priest.
Hi, I'm JB Storey, the writer of SERAPHIM'S Miracle. So this is a tale about finding hope, love, and family in the wake of grief, and how this is achieved through belief and faith that sometimes miracles can happen, especially when you sprinkle in a little bit of magic. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the show.
Exterior, Town Hall, night. A rural town. 50 yards away, a large, mid-19th century town hall is being bombarded by an epic storm. A monstrous flash of lightning, quickly followed by a deafening thunderclap. A shadowy male figure in a jet fighter jumpsuit materializes outside the front door of the town hall. Another flash of lightning. Interior, town hall, night. The incident. The storm rumbles outside. Anxious townsfolk huddle together in a large hall that looks like a cross between a library and an old church. Pews, tables, and chairs line each side of the hall. Midway sits former Marine Norm Clancy, late 50s. He stares at a picture in a locket of a woman, Cynthia, his wife. Norm pulls out a hip flask and takes a swig. Towards the back of the hall is George, mid-20s, African-American. He sits with his mother, Lillian, late 40s. George holds a motorcycle club MC leather vest with Legion of Lucifer inscribed on the back. Lillian looks at the vest with distaste. Further up the hall is Frankie, mid-20s, a junkie. Frankie glances nervously at a young boy dressed in black as he hands a collection box to an old priest. The priest places the box down near a small, very unique-looking altar at the front of the hall. Frankie glances around and catches Norm staring at her. She looks away, ashamed. Lightning, followed by loud thunder, elicits frightened gasps. Frankie stays focused on the collection box. The storm suddenly stops. The hall is eerily silent. Dante, the town sheriff, early 50s, burly and redheaded.
I do believe she's done a huffing and a puffing, folks.
Edith, mid-50s, devout and pious, also stands.
Thank the Lord for our salvation.
Norm glances at Edith, stands, as do others. Frankie rises, steps towards the collection box. George puts on his vest, ignores his mother's admonishment. Norm moves to the aisle when the back door burst open. A mystery man in silhouette stands between the doors. A bright light behind this mystery man forces the surprised townsfolk to cover their eyes. Interior press office day, Afghanistan, Baram Base. Plane engines can be heard outside. Desk cluttered with paper, beer cans, and vodka bottles. There's also a makeshift Christmas tree in the corner. A bright light pierces through a crack of a curtain. The light wakes Ben, early 40s, sleeping on a couch. Ben is hungover and sleep-deprived. Ben's phone rings. He answers, triggering a video call. On the other side of the screen is Ben's wife, Beth Chambers, early 40s. Pretty, bohemian chic, Ben's face lights up. Beth sits in a classroom.
Morning, Debbie.
Hey, Dopey. How was school?
Well, one of my ducklings glued her hand to a desk and another crapped his pants, so, how's the unit?
About the same. But instead of glue and poops, my chicklets got guns and grenades.
Want to swap?
God, no. Much safer here and less explosive.
Beth smiles, winces as she tenderly rubs her forehead.
Migraine?
Beth nods. She studies Ben's tired face, bloodshot eyes.
By the looks of it, I'd say you're the one with the headache, dummy.
Ben holds up an empty vodka bottle.
Helps with the stress.
Did you try that chakra meditation?
Yeah, well, I was gonna.
Ben hears footsteps in the hallway approaching the room.
Dang, got a jet.
Mm-hmm.
Same bad time tomorrow?
Same bat channel. B4B?
B4B.
Beth hurriedly blows Ben a kiss. He grabs it and puts it into his heart. He blows her a kiss and she repeats the gesture before they both hang up. The door to the press room swings open. Standing in the doorway is Selena Richardson, late 40s, a tall, elegant, and steely woman who clearly runs the show. Next to Selena is John Rose, early 50s, a tall, bald man with a smallish beer gut from northern England.
There's our wee laddie.
You're rolling with outfits today.
Isn't that John's?
Arab Spring's in full bloom. So 007 here is off to Syria, which means you're next off the bench.
What's it you Yanks like to say? Go hit a touchdown, ace.
John smiles wryly.
Anything I need to know?
Simple intel up. Click and observe.
Piece of cake, Sparky.
John grins and winks at Ben, turns to leave. Selena nods to Ben and follows John. She wraps her pinky finger around John's as they walk down the hallway. Ben goes to his desk, pulls a Kevlar vest from his chair with the word press scrawled across the front. Exterior, City Elementary School, night. Early evening. The school is closed for the day. Beth walks outside. It's cold, on the verge of snowing. She sees a 9-year-old girl sitting on a stoop, waiting. Beth looks down at her.
Hey, sweetie. Your mom late again?
The girl looks up at Beth and nods her head sadly. Beth looks at her watch. She decides to wait with the girl. She sits down next to the girl, who in turn smiles. She's shivering. Beth holds her closer to provide some warmth. The girl again then opens a little lunchbox. She takes out a small cupcake, splits it in half, and gives one half to Beth. The girl then opens a little lunchbox. She takes out a small cupcake, splits it in half, and gives one half to Beth.
I made it myself.
Beth smiles back at the girl and takes a bite. Interior, ramshackle house, day. Afghan village, dust, gunfire, chaos. 6 members of Alpha Team, under intense fire, take refuge in a cramped shack in the middle of a dusty village. The team hold positions by the windows, firing back. Amid the chaos is Ben, taking pictures.
Piece of cake, my ass.
In the middle of the room is Master Chief Al King, late 30s, African American. He's communicating to headquarters.
QRF incoming.
Petty Officer Hanson, mid-30s, fires through a broken window. Petty Officer Jarvis, scraggy beard, late 20s, fires from a different window close to Hanson. He has a sniper rifle.
Looks like a Telly Street Pride.
And we are the entertainment.
Jarvis looks out the window. He sees a man on a roof on a large building 200 yards away. He's holding a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, RPG.
RPG! RPG!
Jarvis takes a shot and hits the enemy in the head. They still fire the RPG, but it flies in another direction. Ben covers his head when he hears the explosion.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner!
Any more? Will be. Copy that. Paradise, this is Alpha 1, stand down QRF, LZ's too hot. Advise on alternate exfil plan. Over.
Copy that, Alpha 1. Sit tight. Over.
Okay. Options.
We're pinching a little big horn.
Lay down smoke? Watching Sundance through the front?
Negative. That's a last resort.
You do know how Butch and Sundance ended, right?
Hanson winks back at Ben. Jarvis looks out the big building again where most of the enemy combatants have massed.
What if we make a new path?
How?
Frag the buildings down to studs.
Part the sea.
Time to get Moses online.
The soldiers focus on the increasing level of enemy fire coming from outside. King gets back on comms.
Paradise. Request fire mission. Over.
Copy. Stand by, Alpha 1. Over. Mortar blast shakes the windows. The enemy fighters are getting closer to their position. The SEALs fight harder. Ben is starting to worry.
Can't wait much longer, boss.
King worriedly looks over his men.
Paradise. Needs sit rep. Over.
Looks like it's gonna be a Butch and Sundance after all.
Another mortar explodes, even closer this time. Alpha 1, Inbound Eagle, 50 clicks out. Advise you tag the target. Over.
Copy that. Over.
Patching you through to the Eagle. Call sign Sentinel. Paradise out.
Anson, light it up.
Anson grabs a laser tagger from his backpack. Points it at a building 200 yards away.
Target's tagged!
Copy that. Sentinel, this is Alpha 1, requesting emergency close air support. 010 bearing from our position. Target's tagged. Over.
Copy Alpha 1. Blast fields, danger close. Confirm order. Over.
King looks at his men.
Order confirmed, Sentinel. Bacon's in the pan. Fry it up. Over.
Copy that, Alpha 1. Bogies Alpha Mike Foxtrot. Over and out.
All of the men stare at King, including Ben.
Big boom time, boys.
The sound of a jet fighter approaches. The men take cover. Ben snaps a few more pictures. Then, King grabs Ben and drags him to the ground. A small leather-bound book with B4B embossed on the cover falls out of Ben's pocket.
Not making Mrs. Kodak a widow 5 days before Christmas.
Ben nods, looks for his book, grabs it, holds it tight. The whistling sound of a missile cuts through the noise. Ben looks up at a window. Everything flashes like a white flare. He covers his eyes. Exterior, City Elementary School, night. Beth shades her eyes from the lights of a car as it pulls up to the curb to pick up the girl. The girl gets into the car and they drive away. Beth glances at her watch, frowns. She decides to walk. She carries a leather satchel over her shoulder. She turns down a quiet street. It starts to snow. A passing car's lights catch Beth's eyes, making her wince. She massages her head, fighting off a migraine. Suddenly, the street lights start to burn incandescently, practically blinding Beth. The pain is so extreme she falls to her knees. She looks further down the sidewalk. Silhouetted in the light walks a man. He seems to be wearing a pilot's jumpsuit. Beth tries to speak, but no words come out. The silhouetted man dissipates into the fading light. Beth falls to her side. Her face rests on her satchel. She's trying to mouth the words help, but to no avail. From a nearby street, she can hear Christmas carolers singing Silent Night. Beth continues to try and call for help. She gasps small pockets of air until she finally stops breathing altogether. Snow settles on her hair. Interior, airplane hangar, day. Back in Afghanistan. Ben sits at a table with Alpha Team. They're laughing as they drink beer and play cards. Ben shades his eyes from a ray of sunshine blazing over Anson's shoulders. He sips tenderly from a beer bottle.
Hot damn. As far as cangtops go, that was a humdinger.
All the guys laugh and throw down a few more gulps of beer. Ben faces King.
Level with me. How bad was that?
We were 100% foobarred.
Just the way a frogman likes it.
Ben shakes his head at their craziness. King smiles, notices Ben is holding his B4B booklet.
So what's with the book, Kodak?
Sort of good luck charm, I guess. If you believe in that sort of thing.
King reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small book.
Got me one of those too.
Ben notices it's a mini Bible.
Goes where I go, so the big guy's always got my six. You feel me?
So it was the big guy who got us out of that jam.
Wouldn't be the first time he's worked a miracle for Alpha.
Anson, Jarvis, and the other SEALs around the table nod.
Somalia.
Uh-huh. Somalia. Carcass. Baghdad.
God, country, and my frog family. Put it together and miracles will happen.
So it wasn't the pilot who saved us.
Mysterious ways, Kodak.
Dang. Didn't you hear? The pilot?
A young soldier arrives at their table and salutes King.
Sir, your boss would like a word.
Ben reluctantly gets up. He's still holding the Kevlar vest. As he follows the soldier, he notices a tall Asian-American woman, late 30s, in a pilot's jumpsuit, talking to an officer. She glances at Ben. She seems sad, melancholy. For a moment they lock eyes, then she continues talking to the officer. Ben follows the soldier out of the hangar. Interior press office. Ben bundles into the office, smiling and enthusiastic. Selena sits at a desk with a placard that reads, Selena Richardson, Chief War Correspondent, Reuters.
You can tell John to shove that so-called piece of cake up his royal ass.
Ben notices Selena's bloodshot eyes and sad demeanor.
Ben, I just heard
What's going on? Is it John?
it's bad.
Ben freezes.
Wait, what do you mean, Beth?
Selena tries to hold back her sobs.
Benji, she had a massive stroke.
Wait, what? Is she okay? What's going on?
Selena shakes her head, starts to cry. Ben's world flips on its axis. Everything goes blurry. The Kevlar vest he was holding slips from his fingers and hits the floor with a lifeless thump. It starts to rain heavily outside. Interior, large bookstore, night. 3 years later. A book reading. Ben walks in from outside. It's been raining heavily. Ben props himself against a bookshelf at the back of the room. He appears disheveled and sickly. Ben reaches into his pocket, pulls out a bottle of pills, and washes them down with a few swigs from the flask. He shields his eyes from a bright light emanating from a faux study. And sitting on a leather chair is Ravi Sharma, late 30s. He's charming and charismatic. Next to Ravi is a table with a pile of books and a picture of him on the cover, wearing mountain climbing gear. The book title reads, Surviving K2. Ravi reads to an audience, while behind him a screen plays a slideshow of related images. Ben looks over at Ravi with contempt. The slideshow projects an image of Ravi with his dad.
I reached K2's summit 5 months after my father died. And once there, I made an offering to Lord Krishna to protect my papa in the afterlife.
Slideshow projects an image of Ravi at the summit. Ravi sips on some water.
During our descent, we were hit by a lethal ice storm. It wiped out the Sherpas and the climbers, one by one.
The audience is enraptured.
After 2 days, I was all alone, and it was only a matter of time before I died. But then, something incredible happened. My papa appeared. He was so real. I could smell him. I could see him. I could feel his skin.
The audience are on the edge of their seats.
He urged me to get up and go. I had no water, no oxygen, yet still his spirit led me to the base camp. It was a karmic miracle.
Ravi bows his head and holds his hands in prayer, a gesture of thanks to the audience who clap enthusiastically.
You're too kind. Any questions?
Ravi sees Ben waving his hand.
Yes.
The name Dawa Pamu? Ring a bell?
Who are they?
Dawa's a Nepalese Sherpa. He helped you up K2, thing-a-ling.
Oh, you mean DP. That's what we called him. Great guy. Couldn't speak English, but was an amazing Sherpa. He was one of the last ones to go.
You saw him die.
Sadly, I saw everyone die.
Is he dead? Or maybe, unlike you, he really did make it down K2 without any oxygen after being left for dead. Maybe, just maybe, there were 4 of you still alive on the Northeast Ridge, but none of you had enough oxygen to make it down. It required at least 3 canisters each, so you resolved to stay together. Any of that sound familiar?
This isn't funny. People died.
Correct. Anne Wright and Joe Dean were the other climbers you killed.
Lies. All lies. Where's the proof?
Go to YouTube and search for Dawa's K2 story. I just uploaded the video.
The audience watched the video on their phones. They're shocked. Ravi is fuming.
What have you done?
Ben smiles, snaps a picture of Ravi silently raging. Insert. Cover of magazine entitled Scuttlebutt. The cover features Ben's snapshot of Ravi raging in the bookstore. It reads, Killer Climber Caught. Best-selling author's miraculous story about surviving a disaster on K2 was a murderous lie. Underneath the snapshot of Ravi in the bookstore are pictures of the climbers he left for dead. End insert. Interior Scuttlebutt office day. The city a few weeks later. Ben holds the Scuttlebutt magazine cover featuring Ravi as he steps off an elevator and into the Scuttlebutt office. On a wall opposite the elevator is a placard for Scuttlebutt Media. Think Huffington Post meets National Enquirer. On the wall are other framed magazine covers, including 2 other debunking articles written by Ben. Insert. Scuttlebutt magazine cover. The magazine cover reads, Immaculate Deception, Mormon pastor's so-called Immaculate Conception miracles fueled by rohypnol and hypnosis, accompanied by a picture of a Mormon pastor trying to hide his face as he exits a courthouse. Underneath the image of the pastor is a picture of 5 young women holding kids aged 6 months to 3 years old. The other framed magazine cover shows a dozen saddened people standing close to a large oak tree. The tree trunk seems to have a face, not clearly carved, but not fully natural either. The eyes of the face cry blood. Next to the tree is a white man posing as a native Indian shaman, early 60s. On the other side of the tree are 2 forest rangers. They've dug a small hole from which they've pulled out an electric hose contraption attached to a blood bag. The magazine cover reads, Shameless Sham Man, Weeping Face of God, nothing more than a callous carving infused with bison blood. And inserts. Ben shakes his head and throws the magazine he was holding into a trash can before entering a conference room. The conference room table is abuzz with writers. At the head of the table is Selena. Selena points to Sarah, a young woman to the left of her.
Okay, so we got the calendar girl turned professor. Headline should be hot for teacher.
Sarah nods, takes a note. Selena points to Mark, early 30s, sitting to the right.
And we have the Illuminati colluding to manipulate the markets. Cash cult. That'll play.
Mark nods, pleased, makes a note. Meanwhile, Ben pours himself some coffee and then surreptitiously adds some whiskey to the cup via a flask.
What about tech?
Silence.
Wait, where's Jacob?
Selena looks down the table.
He's on family leave.
They had a little girl. She's...
Who's covering for Jacob?
Clicks her fingers, trying to remember. Points to a young Asian man at the end of the table, Ronnie, mid-20s.
Donnie? You're on Jacob's team, right?
Ronnie's mouth is full with a half-eaten bite of bagel. He spits it out into a napkin.
Yeah, I write his blogs. My name is Ronnie, by the way.
What was Jacob working on?
Yeah, it's a piece about Facebook secretly working on an AI robot that'll become self-aware by 2025.
That's right. Terminator meets the social network. Folo?
I can write the...
Slow your roll, Nancy Drew. We need a real journalist, not a blogger.
Have a master's from Stanford's enemy.
It's all yours.
Sarah nods. Ronnie sighs. Pushes his bagel away. Selena notices Ben standing next to a window.
Okay, that's a wrap.
Selena gestures to Ben to follow her out. Interior, scuttlebutt office. Ben walks with Selena through the office hallways and weave through the bullpen.
Terminator and Illuminati.
All the news unfit to print. That's Scuttlebutt's DNA, lest you forget.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Oh, so says Humpty Dumpty.
Why the summons, Lena?
Phil wants a word.
Why?
They arrive outside Selena's office. Ben peeks through the glass door at a man in her office. Phil Knox, mid-60s. A wealthy businessman in a 3-piece suit. Sarah's desk. Ronnie rolls his chair next to Sarah. Watches Ben and Selena walking and talking.
Hey, what's their deal?
I think she was his bureau chief when they worked at Reuters.
How does Ben Chambers and Selena Richardson end up here?
I know Chambers' wife died right around the same time Selena's partner, John Rose, was in Syria. And
John Rose? As in the John Rose? Who was it?
One and the same. It'd be hard to go back into the field after that. Ew. Gives me the heebie-jeebies whenever I think about it.
Ronnie nods. Continues to watch Ben and Selena. Selena's office. Ben and Selena enter. Phil greets them.
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Chambers.
Selena takes a seat behind her desk. Ben looks at Phil suspiciously as they shake hands. Ben glances around the room.
Oh, guys like you usually have an entourage of lawyers and assistants?
I'm not like most of those guys. You see, I didn't come from money. Left home when I was 16, built my first house when I was 18, and then...
Yeah, I know your bio.
Read my book.
Just the reviews.
Phil has a proposal, Benji.
Phil pulls out a file from a briefcase.
The Sharma piece was a hit. Just like all the other articles you've written about ghost hunters, snake oil psychics, and so-called miracles.
Yes, and?
I have a case for you. Some small-town hicks claim they saw a ghost while sheltering from a storm.
Ben's annoyed, peeks at the file.
I pick my own investigations.
Phil looks over ominously at Selena.
Here's the rub, Benji. Phil's close friends with Cardinal Verone.
And he has asked we discreetly look into this matter on their behalf.
Why?
In my experience, questioning the Vatican's agenda is a fool's errand.
The why doesn't matter, Ben. It's the what you might get out of it.
Meaning?
Phil addresses Ben directly.
The Cardinal is a close family friend. Not to mention, I'm probably the church's biggest benefactor in the state.
Ben looks over at Selena, baffled. Selena looks at Phil, who in turn nods back at her.
Phil believes he can get you that thing you've been looking for.
Ben stares at Phil, trying to size him up. Phil nods back.
Let me think about it.
Phil gets up, looks at Selena, and then back at Ben.
Don't think too hard, buddy boy.
Phil smiles and heads to the door. Later, Phil has left the office. Ben is sitting on the couch facing Selena, who is leaning against her desk.
Phil's a glorified used car salesman with zero integrity. 100% a punk.
Phil's the majority shareholder and, technically speaking, our publisher.
So he says, jump. That's not us.
But what if he can do it?
Get them to unseal the adoption records? It's a moonshot at best.
Benji, you have every right to doubt him, but you trust me, right?
Selena smiles nervously. Ben looks at Selena, realizes.
How bad is it?
Everything's hunky-dory.
Seriously, how bad is it?
Bad enough that I shouldn't nip at the hand that feeds. Bad enough that if I lose this place, I'm obit fodder. So do me a solid here, Benji.
Selena sits next to Ben.
Besides, if the ends justify your crusade to rid the world of frauds, then who cares about the source?
Okay, just give me a minute.
Mañana. Fair?
Fair.
Ben picks up the file and starts to leave. He pauses and turns back to face Selena.
What was it that John used to say? You can take the girl out of the fight, but...
I know.
Ben smiles sympathetically and then exits the office. Selena looks at a picture on her desk of her, John, and Ben all wearing their Kevlar vests with the word press on them. In particular, one face, John. She frowns, ashamed. Interior scuttlebutt office. Ben waits for an elevator to arrive. The doors open. He gets in, followed by Ronnie. They're the only ones in the elevator. Ronnie clearly wants to say something, but lacks the courage. Ben notices, finally faces Ronnie.
Out with it.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to say I'm a big fan. Huge fan.
So, you want an autograph?
No. That'll be weird. Totally unprofessional, right?
So...
well, yeah. If you ever need help, like, for anything, I'd be, like, a huge honor.
Sure. The elevator doors open. Ronnie hands Ben a card.
Here's my number. Call anytime, day or night. I'm available.
Ben takes the card, scrunches it up, and pockets it.
You bet, Johnny.
The doors start to close. Ben walks away.
It's Ronnie.
The doors start to close. Ronnie is alone.
Anytime, day or night? Idiots.
The doors reopen. It's Ben. He seems apologetic.
For what it's worth, kid, be tough, be consistent, and be persistent. You'll get on her radar soon enough.
Ben lets the door close. Ronnie's grin goes from ear to ear. Interior, upscale, Italian restaurant, night. Ben sits at an intimate two-top table. An untouched plate of carbonara in front of him. On the other side is a chicken parmesan, also untouched. The seat opposite Ben is empty. Ben fills a glass with what remains of a bottle of red wine.
I tried the chakra meditation again. They didn't take.
Ben sees an apparition of Beth opposite him. She smiles. She wears the same clothes from the night she died. Ben notices blood start to blossom over Beth's forehead. Ben looks away, with tears in his eyes. The moment is interrupted by a series of phone beeps coming from a dashing man sitting at a table next to Ben. Ben sees a pretty young woman opposite the dashing man. The woman seems bored and ignored. Meanwhile, the dashing man continues on the phone. Beep, beep, beep. Ben glares at the dashing man. The dashing man notices.
Got a problem, pal?
Yeah, pal. I do.
Ben rises up, unsteady. Ben leans over the dashing man and slaps his phone out of his hands. It lands in the dashing man's soup.
Dude, what the hell?
Look at her.
Ben aggressively grabs the dashing man's head and turns it towards the pretty young lady.
Get the hell off me.
Look at her. 'Cause one day that face will be gone, and you'll regret every second you spent not looking at her. Every second.
One of the waiters, Polly, gently grabs Ben, pulls him away.
I'm sorry.
They walk towards the door.
It's okay, Ben. I know.
Ben shuffles outside, looks back into the restaurant at the empty chair that has been opposite him.
Happy anniversary, Dopey.
Ben trudges away down the street. Interior, Ben's apartment, night. Ben arrives home. He holds a small batch of mail. Ben grabs a beer from the fridge. He slams the door. A picture of a sonogram falls off. Ben gently places the sonogram pic back on the fridge, alongside other pictures of him and Beth over the years, including a wedding pic of Ben, Beth, and Selena and John. Ben sits at his kitchen counter. The file that Phil gave him is open. He flicks through the pages, irritated. Ben closes the file and goes through his mail instead. Ben notices a postcard. The picture is of a small town. The caption on the postcard pic reads, "Welcome to Seraphim." Ben flips the postcard around. There's no note. Something occurs to Ben. He hurriedly reopens Phil's file. He reads, finds what he's looking for, and seems surprised.
Seraphim.
He grabs his cell phone, makes a call.
Lena. Yeah, I'm in. Just make sure Phil's clerical caller doesn't become a noose. Fair?
Ben ends the call, takes the file with him out of the kitchen. The sonogram picture falls from the fridge again. Exterior, city street, alley. Ben's dream. Night. Beth's pale face is turned to the side, her head resting on her brown leather satchel. Blood drips from her forehead. Small snowflakes fall and rest in her hair. Ben's face is opposite hers. She stares into Ben's eyes.
Proteger Ios. Senandum Ios. Tionet Ios.
Ben tries to say something, but... Interior, hotel room, morning. Ben lurches awake, covered in sweat. The sun is rising. He squints his eyes as bright morning light pierces through a crack in the curtains. He wipes his face, looks over at the bedside table, notices something missing. He frantically searches, sees his B4B booklet scattered among loose papers. He grabs it and holds it tight to his chest. Ben gets out of bed and picks up a pen from a desk and small notepad. Tries to remember what Beth said in his dream, but can't.
Come on. Remember, damn it.
Beep, beep. Ben's phone rings. He sees it's Selena. Intercut. Selena in her office back in NYC.
Sit rep, Sparky?
Ben switches on the TV.
Got in last night.
Selena nods.
How long will you need?
Ben grabs the Welcome to Seraphim postcard from his desk.
A few days max. By the way, did you know this incident took place in the town of Seraphim?
Selena pauses. Something occurs to her.
Seraphim? Isn't that where you and Beth stayed at a B&B? And...
Yeah, same place.
Haha, the botched proposal.
Yeah, I got ahead of my skis and...
Popped the question while she was brushing her teeth. I remember.
Weird, right?
Ben glances at the TV. He notices a weatherman. WPIJ caption on the TV reads, Will the Weatherman. Selena notices Phil waiting outside her office.
Keep your head on swivel, okay?
360 degrees, Chief.
The call ends. Selena looks down at her phone and then at Phil. She takes a deep breath and waves him in. Back to scene. Looks at the blank notepad, closes his eyes, trying to remember, opens them again, distraught. Ben rubs his bloodshot eyes, reaches for some pills. Interior Town Hall, day, early morning. Same library/church hall where the incident took place. Ben sits behind a table near the front. He shades his eyes from a ray of light piercing through a window. He notices various posters on the wall advertising an upcoming fundraiser event for the Fairfax altar.
You must be the journalist.
Ben swivels to see a man, Padre, mid-20s, standing in the aisle. Padre's dressed in black. He's tall and graceful.
Yeah, what gave it away, Padre?
It's a small town. Whisper a myth in the morning, it'll be legend by the afternoon.
So all eyes on me?
Yes, I suppose.
Why?
Perhaps they're curious about your intentions.
Just here to seek the truth.
What kind of truth? Factual? Personal? Spiritual?
Ben sighs, slightly irritated, then looks Padre up and down.
Okay. Aren't you a little young for confessional?
You know what they say. Wisdom comes in all shapes and sizes.
Do they? I haven't heard that before.
Well, you learn something new every day.
That one I am familiar with.
Ben stands up.
Best be on the bounce, Padre.
Padre smiles as Ben starts to walk away down the aisle.
I hope you find what you're looking for, Ben.
Ben stops in his tracks, turns to Padre.
Looking for?
Sometimes what we intend to seek isn't what we're hoping to find.
Ben grins with a hint of sarcasm.
Thanks for the pearls, kid.
See you soon.
Ben walks away.
Well, that's highly unlikely.
Exterior, horse stables, day. Norm's ranch. Ben stands awkwardly as Norm moves haystacks around. Outside of the stable are field enclosures with various people riding or grooming horses.
So you were in the Marines, NCO, and a medic? A veteran of Iraq War One.
Affirmative.
And 6 years ago, you converted this ranch into a sanctuary for vets?
All you see, from pillar to post, was inspired by my son, Jimmy.
Ben sees a young man, Chris, in a large cowboy hat, cleaning a horse at the end of the stable. Ben also notices the young man has a prosthetic hand. The young man tips his hat, saying hello. Ben nods.
Which Jimmy, the real one or the other one?
Norm nods back, slightly perplexed.
So, how does war correspondent go from bullets and bombs to folklore and fantasy?
Former war correspondent.
Well, tell me, Ben, do former war correspondents drink beer?
Ben nods. He takes another look around, suspicious. Exterior, Norm's ranch house, day. Ben and Norm sit on the porch. Norm holds 2 cold beer bottles, opens them up with an ornate, wooden-handled penknife. The knife has the initials JC carved into the handle. Norm notices Ben staring at the knife.
Gave it to Jimmy on his 12th birthday.
Jimmy was an only child?
Cynthia and I struggled to conceive. And right about the time we were ready to surrender, God saw fit to bless us with an angel.
An angel?
Figure. You pray and pray for a child, but those prayers go unanswered. And just when you start losing faith, boom, it happens. Wouldn't you consider that a divine gift?
I'd consider it perseverance.
If Cynthia were here, she'd have you convinced Jimmy was the second coming in no time at all.
I don't break easy.
Nor does an old grunt like me. But my girl was a dreamer. To her, the world was a happier place if you believe in a little bit of magic.
So when did she...
Died. Saving her 10-year-old angel from drowning in a river.
What happened?
We got caught in the undertow. She dived in after him, got him to safety, but I was too late to save her.
Must have been hard on you both.
It was. Jimmy felt responsible, and I felt like a failure. I couldn't get out of the moment. Know what I mean?
So you both felt guilty?
Eventually, Jimmy was able to move forward, but I couldn't. So he lost his mom, and his father went AWOL.
Did he resent you for that?
Jimmy, heck no. The opposite. He saw it as his duty to help me.
To help you.
Norm opens another beer, hands it to Ben.
You've been around door kickers, so you know how seriously they take the oath to leave no man behind.
I do.
Do you know the history of that motto?
Never thought about it.
Interior, Norm's ranch house, night, flashback. The home is dusty, unkept, unloved. Norm sits slouched on the couch. Baseball plays on the TV. Half a dozen empty beer bottles sit on the coffee table. Norm stares intently at his old service gun on the table. Jimmy, 13, walks in carrying a plate of pasta for his dad. He's wearing a baseball uniform.
Leave no man behind comes from the Latin phrase, nemo residio. For the Spartans, this expression meant they were bound by brotherhood to bring home their dead, to ensure they're honored in the afterlife.
Norm grunts a thanks. Jimmy sees the beer and the gun.
That credo was adopted by the Union Army back in the Civil War era.
Jimmy starts to put on his jacket by the door, looks back sympathetically at his father.
The South had taken to imprisoning black soldiers and executing them. So, fearing the hell of prison, these soldiers would take their own lives if likely to be captured.
Jimmy leaves the house. Norm barely touches the pasta bowl, picks up his gun.
The Union generals decided this wasn't acceptable. So they gave orders that no matter the situation, no soldier gets left behind on the battlefield.
Norm opens the locket again, cries. He puts the gun under his chin, readying himself to pull the trigger.
Over time, this tenet was adopted by all branches of the military. And after a while, it started to mean much more than rescuing or recovering a wounded and dead.
The front door opens back up. It's Jimmy again. Norm puts the gun down. He tries to hide his tears, but can't.
It was a commitment to look after all soldiers, whether at war or in peace.
Jimmy goes to his dad and quietly removes the gun from the table and puts it into the drawer of a desk by the window. From the same desk, Jimmy pulls out prescription pills. He gives a pill to Norm, along with some water. Norm no longer hides his tears, takes the pill.
No vet will be left behind because their brothers and sisters won't let them suffer alone.
Jimmy sits next to Norm on the couch, holds Norm's hand as they both watch the game. End flashback. Exterior, Norm's ranch house, day.
It's a father's job to prepare his son to be a man. Yet when he needed me most, I gave in to my grief. But Jimmy refused to leave me behind.
So he saved you.
In a way, he was my salvation.
So I suppose that makes him a saint.
A saint.
Well, you already said he's an angel.
And here I thought Frankie can be cynical. But she can't hold a candle to you, son.
Norm finishes his beer and shakes his head, still amused. Ben puts his beer bottle down and frowns. Interior, group home, classroom, day. Frankie is the junkie from the incident. Frankie appears to be healthy and drug-free. She cleans the room while speaking to Ben.
Should have come earlier. The kids here have never met a big city reporter.
I'm not really a show and tell material.
True, a one-time Pulitzer journalist wouldn't be remotely inspiring. But something tells me that Pulitzer journalist has little in common with this tabloid reporter.
Ben frowns, but doesn't respond to the slight.
Is this the home church run?
No, private donations, non-profit.
Oh.
Sounds like you know something about the system.
Tell me about your job.
I teach, counsel, hold the kids together so they feel like a family.
Ben looks out the window, sees kids playing soccer.
Jimmy volunteered here, coached sports.
What exactly was your relationship with Jimmy?
Okay, where do I begin? Well, it goes like this. I grew up in the system, bounced around a few homes before I was 18. And by and large, I got through it unbroken, but there's a big difference between unbroken and incomplete. Then Jimmy came along.
Let me guess, he completed you.
Ah, I see why they gave you the Pulitzer.
Interior, group home, hallway, day. Ben walks with Frankie as she starts looking up the various classrooms for the day. On the walls are a couple of posters advertising an upcoming fundraiser to save the town hall.
Jimmy was my constant, always there, even when I didn't deserve it.
Deserve?
Frankie pauses, faces Ben.
I'm a recovering addict.
Ben puts a hand in his pocket, fiddles nervously with his prescription pill bottle. Frankie notices.
How did it happen, the addiction?
Started with a broken leg and 30 pills, and then before you know it, the bottom falls out.
Addiction's a disease, right?
My addiction was also pathological.
How so?
Frankie notices a stray dog, collie shepherd, mix happily trotting along the sidewalk outside.
Being in the system it's like you're a stray dog, unworthy of a home. And even if taken in, you still feel like an imposter. Because you know deep down inside, they're going to eventually see the real you, the unwanted pariah. And just like the others, they'll cast you away. You know what I mean?
Well, so you self-sabotaged.
Oh, yeah. And Jimmy tried his best to help, but even the saintest of saints can lose patience with a sinner. So one day he took off and left me a note. Well, not much of a note, but lyrics to a song.
Interior, Frankie's addiction. Day/night. Flashback. Series of shots depicting Frankie's battle with addiction. Frankie's apartment. She's in her bathroom, frantically going through prescription pill bottles, but there's nothing left. She finds a dusty old cough medicine bottle, opens it up, sniffs it, and then downs the whole thing.
You and I, together in our lives, sacred ties never fray. Then why can I let myself tell lies and watch you die every day?
Drug dealer den. Frankie enters a repulsive apartment frequented by junkies. She's wearing a backpack. Frankie approaches Tony, early 30s drug dealer, sitting at a small card table. On a couch behind Tony is Bam Bam, late 20s, a lurid addict.
I think back to the times when our dreams were what mattered. You said you'd never let me down, but the horse stampedes and rages in the name of desperation.
Frankie reaches into her backpack. She pulls out a large booklet, hands it to Tony. Tony opens the booklet. The inside cover contains a note scrawled in the handwriting of a child. Jimmy Clancy's best stamp collection in the world.
Is it all just wasted time? Can you look at yourself when you think of what you've left behind?
Tony looks at Frankie and shakes his head at how desperate she must be. He hands her a little baggie with white powder. Behind Tony, Frankie sees Bam Bam holding up a syringe and smiling back at her with yellow, decaying teeth. Frankie's apartment. Jimmy lets himself in. A hoodie shadows his face.
Where's my friend I used to know? She's all alone. She's buried deep within a carcass, searching for a soul.
The apartment is ransacked. Empty bottles, half-eaten food, and clothes all over the place. Jimmy finds Frankie in her living room. She's passed out on her couch, with a needle still in her arm.
Can you feel me inside your heart as it's bleeding? Why can't you believe you can be loved?
Jimmy then picks Frankie up and cradles her out of the room. Hospital room. Frankie slowly wakes up. She's emaciated and holding on by a thread. She notices a note by her bed. She opens it up, starts to cry.
The sun will rise again. The earth will turn to sand. Creation's colors seem to fade to gray, and you'll see the sickly hands of time. We'll write your final rhyme and end our memory.
End series of shots and flashback. Exterior group home, playfield continuous. Frankie faces Ben.
Is it all just wasted time? Can you live with yourself when you think of what you've left behind?
Frankie hurriedly wipes a tear from her eye. For a moment, she looks embarrassed and ashamed. Ben offers a sympathetic smile.
So there you have it, warts and all.
You didn't have to share.
Yes, I did. Recovery step 1. Own your addiction. If you could name it, you could tame it.
Ben stops fiddling with the pill bottle in his pocket.
All due respect, but this guy you make out to be perfect abandoned you.
If we had all day, I'd tell you about all the other dozen times he saved my ass, but like I said, we all have a breaking point and he just couldn't get through to me.
So how did you get sober? And please don't say act of God or miracle.
Damn it. You boxed me in, Ben. So how about I meet you halfway? To quote George, it took something sublime.
Ben raises an eyebrow, begrudgingly intrigued. Interior police car, afternoon. George is the tough guy from the incident. George wears a deputy uniform and has grown a goatee. Ben drives with George as they weave through town.
So what's it like policing a tiny village?
George smiles warmly, ignoring Ben's slight.
See, my man, it's like a small farm with a clock in. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. See, my man, it's like a small farm with a flock of critters running around, but with only 3 guard dogs protecting them from the wily coyotes out there.
That's why you became a cop? To protect the flock, so to speak?
Oh, this is Jimmy's idea.
Speaking of, you and Jimmy were thick as thieves, according to Frankie.
Since preschool. Man, if we weren't playing Legos, we'd be on the big wheels, always goofing off. And as we got older, Legos turned into video games, big wheels into bikes, games into girls, and bikes into cars. So yeah, we were thick as thieves and twice as Thelma and Louise. Oh, that's what I thought.
Well, what changed?
When I was 18, my cousin Pico got out of the joint.
Well, what was he in for?
Being a badass outlaw.
Sounds like you admired him.
Dang, I thought he was the shaft of the motorcycle clubs.
What happened?
One day Pico shows up with the entire Legion of Lucifer MC outside of my mom's diner. Offers me a ride. Ma lost her mind. Tells me if I get on one of those donor cycles, then my ass best not come back.
So you got on the bike.
Like a bat out of hell.
Exterior park, day. The police car's parked. George and Ben lean against the hood while they eat hot dogs and drink sodas.
So how'd Jimmy fit into this chapter?
I couldn't join the MC without Jimbo, so Pico made him a prospect. And, Jim dug it right at first. Maybe because he liked the open road, or maybe because he was keeping tabs on me. But after a time, we were exposed to the darker side of the MC.
Which was?
Dealing, smuggling, theft. And that didn't sit well with Jim.
He quit?
George notices the collie shepherd mixed stray dog, milling.
You know the tale about the feral cat and the hobo dog who were brothers?
Ben raises an inquisitive eyebrow. Exterior, city streets, night. Flashback of George's story. 12 years ago, George and Jimmy on their bikes. Jimmy wears a black helmet with angel wing decals and it has a dark visor. George's look is more old school.
So check it out. The cat and dog grew up together on the streets, from kitty and pup to full-grown critters. Where one went, the other followed.
George and Jimmy stop in front of a bar. George ogles a cute girl standing out front. Jimmy shakes his head.
They made a good team. The cat was curious by nature, and the dog was protected by instinct.
A big dude with even bigger friends walk out of the bar, puts his arm around the girl. George and Jimmy right away.
On it went to one day, the cat wanted to sneak into the restaurant kitchen and steal some grub.
George and Jimmy pull up to an alley. Parked halfway down is a restored 1970s SS Camaro car. George turns off his bike, gets off. Again, Jimmy shakes his head, but this time George won't listen. Jimmy has no other option but to follow.
The dog knew this was dangerous, but the cat aimed to misbehave.
George approaches the car and pulls a Slim Jim from his jacket. Tries to pry the car door open. Jimmy stands lookout.
So, he slinked into the kitchen and found himself a treat. And despite knowing better, the dog followed.
A door opposite the car opens. A rugged, mafioso-looking man, mid-40s, spots George and Jimmy.
So it was to no surprise when the chef caught him red-handed. He attacked the critters with a cleaver.
The mafioso man pulls a gun. As George and Jimmy run back to their bikes, he shoots a couple of rounds.
The dog wasn't as quick as the cat, so the chef caught the end of his tail with a mighty blow.
One of the bullets grazes Jimmy's right shoulder.
Now, thankfully, the dog got away, but with only half a tail.
They jump on their bikes and speed away.
By protecting the cat from his nature, he had lost part of himself.
Later, George and Jimmy are outside the Legion of Lucifer's biker bar HQ. George is recounting the story to a pretty girl, early 20s. He laughs as he points to where Jimmy's shoulder was grazed.
Meantime, the cat ignored the dog's pain and again aimed to misbehave.
George hops off his bike, follows the pretty girl into the bar. Jimmy remains still, doesn't follow.
But this time the dog didn't follow. He turned away from his brother, because he knew between his instinct and the cat's nature, he'd eventually wind up with no tail at all.
George turns around, sees Jimmy driving off. Jimmy's MC vest is hanging off the handlebar of George's bike, along with his angel wing helmet. George goes to his bike, picks up Jimmy's helmet. He watches Jimmy gliding away off in the distance, his eyes filled with regret. End flashback. Exterior park, day. George stares out ruefully at the stray dog in the park.
So Jimmy left the MC.
And never looked back.
What about you?
Traded my brother from another mother for the life of an outlaw.
How'd that work out?
I stayed true to nature and got I stayed true to my nature and got 6 months for Grand Theft Auto. While Jimbo's need to protect got him into the cockpit of an F-16.
The stray dog catches the scent of something and runs away. Interior police station, day. Ben follows George as he files paperwork. On one wall is a poster for the town hall fundraiser.
Ever hear from Jimmy again?
He wrote me every day. Kept me believing I could do better. Maybe even help others like him.
Did you?
I sure wanted to. Problem is, ex-jailbirds get their wings clipped outside the yard.
Yeah, reality kicked in.
More like kick me in the nethers. So I got to thinking maybe being an outlaw is all I'm worth.
So what changed your mind?
Jimmy.
Interior, Jimmy's bedroom, day. Ben looks around Jimmy's room with Norm. It's filled with books about cars, bikes, planes, and sports. Trophies on shelves for baseball, football, and tennis. Jimmy was clearly the archetype of all-American boy. Ben notices a poster of an F-14 fighter jet on the wall.
Jimmy was a naval aviator?
Top Gun, best of the best.
Ben notices an old Kodak Polaroid camera.
When did he deploy?
18 months prior to the incident.
Yeah, let's get into that. Why were you at the town hall?
Town folks harbor there when we get hit by those big nor'easters. Also, there was something odd about that night. I could smell Cynthia in the air. Felt like she was trying to say something. So I went to the place I thought closest to her soul.
So when did the incident happen?
Interior, town hall, night. Flashback. Norm recalls the night of the incident. Townsfolk hear the storm stop. Silence. Dante, town sheriff, stands, as does Edith, the pious woman.
I do believe she's done a huffing and a puffing, folks.
Thank the Lord for our salvation.
Norm gets up and starts to put on his coat.
It was right about the time I decided to leave. And
the door at the front of the hallway blasts open. Silhouetted in the doorway is a man in a wet jumpsuit, aviation uniform, wearing a helmet.
And there he stood.
The man in uniform enters. The doors slam shut behind him.
Were you sober at the time?
Close enough.
The man walks past Norm, whose mouth is agape.
What did he do?
The townsfolk stare at the uniformed man, stunned.
He made peace with the past by making sure we had a future.
Exterior, group home, playground, day. Ben and Frankie sit in swings. Ben's phone vibrates. It's Selena. He ignores the call.
Were you at the hall for the storm?
Not exactly.
Frankie faces Ben.
When you're a junkie, there's no depths you won't plumb to find or fund your next high. I did things. Stupid, horrible things.
Interior, town hall. Night of the incident, flashback.
That night, they were counting money from weekly donations to help run our library/church. It wasn't much, but enough for a fix.
Near the front is Frankie, eyeing the collection box.
Holy heist.
What with the storm and all the chaos, I could slip in and out without notice.
Frankie starts to stand, but pauses when the back doors open. She covers her eyes from the bright light. The door is shut. The man in uniform passes Frankie on his way to the altar. She holds her breath.
I could smell the rain on his uniform.
The man in uniform removes his helmet, kneels at the altar. His face remains hidden in shadow. He lights a candle.
How long was he there?
Maybe a minute or two.
The uniformed man stands, puts his helmet back on, walks towards the back doors, momentarily pauses next to Frankie.
And then he whispered something to me.
What did he say?
End flashback. Interior police station, day. George is at his desk. Ben sits across from him.
Protect him. That's what he whispered to me.
How are you so certain that it was him?
Like asking if I know my own shadow.
Interior, town hall. Night of the incident, flashback. George is at the back with Lillian. Both watch as the uniformed man kneels at the altar.
You were that certain?
Not at first. When those doors blew open, I nearly up and pissed myself.
The man in uniform gets up and heads to the doors, passes George and pauses. George cocks his head, listening.
But after he spoke to me, I felt at peace, like everything was going to be okay. That's how I knew it was Jimmy.
Intercut, police station, present day.
Felt like him? Like a sixth sense?
Yeah, I see dead people. And you can question my sixth sense all you want, my man. But what you can't deny is the timing of it all.
Flashback, at the town hall continued. The back doors slam shut as the uniformed man leaves. The townsfolk are stunned. George glances over at Frankie and Norm. They share a look as others gossip in excitement, preparing to leave.
After the buzz died down, some folks were ready to split.
A thunderous sound of screaming wind can be heard outside. People pause. The sound gets louder and louder until it feels like they're in the middle of a 747 jet engine. The hallway shakes under the noise. George holds his mother tight. Others cover their ears. The thunderous sounds comes to an abrupt stop. Norm marches past George to the doors, opens them. George and Frankie follow Norm. They all stare in shock at the outside. They see absolute devastation. Houses destroyed, cars overturned.
If folks had left there and then, they would have been swept away by a huge twister, just like Dorothy and Toto.
In the distance, a tornado spins off into the night. Back to the station.
Okay, then, so Jimmy saved the day.
Yep, I hear you, bro. And if I were you, I think old George here is tripping.
You wouldn't be wrong.
Okay, but do I look like one of those Jesus freaks to you?
No idea. But I do know there's an explanation. Always is.
And if you can square that circle, more power to you, bro. But it won't change what that night gave me.
Which was?
Belief.
In what?
The subline, bro. The subline.
Ben's phone vibrates. It's Selena again. He ignores the call. Exterior, Norm's ranch, day. Ben and Norm walk around a field as they watch a man in his mid-20s teaching a young woman with an eye patch to ride. Wisps of snow fall through the air.
Heal them.
That's what he whispered.
You understand how that sounds.
Tell me, son, do I strike you as a man who tolerates baloney or believes in the tooth fairy?
Ben looks at Norm in the eyes.
Do you believe I can be convinced?
That's up to you. Our responsibility is to share our story honestly, regardless of your intent or agenda.
So either you're all crazy or people die and there's no coming back.
They stop at a fence post overlooking a pasture.
I may be overstepping, but mind telling me how your wife passed?
Ben bristles momentarily.
Aneurysm.
How long was she in?
It was sudden, very sudden.
Ben sees Beth standing in the middle of the pasture. A small droplet of blood dribbles down her forehead.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay, if we head inside, my toes are starting to go numb.
Ben walks ahead of Norm.
Overstepping? Roger that.
Norm catches up to Ben. Interior ranch house day. Norm and Ben are in the kitchen, nursing cups of coffee. Norm hands Ben a folded American flag.
So when do you find out about Jimmy?
Day after the incident. Navy chaplain came by and gave me the flag.
Where was he stationed?
Afghanistan.
3 years ago? Which base?
Bagram?
Ben pauses, stares at the flag with a furrowed brow.
You remember the name of his commanding officer?
Captain Susie Kawachika. Know her well. She helped me secure funding for what we do here on the ranch.
Ben places the flag down on the counter, lost in thought. Quick flashback, Baram. 3 years ago, right before Ben found out about Beth dying. Ben following a soldier to Selena's office. He notices a tall Asian American woman, late 30s, in a pilot's jumpsuit, talking to an officer. She glances at Ben. She seems sad. For a second, Ben can see a name scrawled on a patch across her chest. Kawichaka. End flashback. Norm stares at Ben, who in turn seems startled.
Looking kind of queasy, Ben. You okay?
Ben looks back at Norm, stumped. Exterior, group home, playground, day. Ben stands up from the swing, warms up his cold arms.
Were you using at the time?
Always, but I wasn't wasted.
So what did he whisper to you?
Hold them.
Hold who?
Hold them. And that's what he whispered to me.
And that meant what?
Frankie suddenly gets up from her swing, shivers.
You like ice cream?
Ben seems perplexed. Exterior, ice cream parlor, night. Ben sits at a booth with Frankie. She's eating a chocolate ice cream. Ben sips a black coffee. Ben's phone vibrates. It's Selena. He ignores the call.
So why are we here?
10 years ago to the day, Jimmy took me here on our first date.
Ice cream in the middle of winter?
Pure Jimmy. Anyway, we got here and placed an order. I asked for cherry, but I get served strawberry, which I didn't notice at first because I was, distracted. But after a couple of bites, I realized,
Why, uh-oh. Are you allergic?
very. I went into anaphylactic shock, right where you're sitting. Jimmy rushed me to the ER, which saved my life. According to the doc, he said if we'd waited for the ambulance, I wouldn't have made it.
Boy wonder saves the day again.
Like I said, he was my guardian angel.
Ben looks around at the other tables. He sees an apparition of Beth at the counter, eating a vanilla ice cream. Blood from her forehead drips onto the white vanilla cream. Frankie notices Ben's expression. She looks back at him with genuine compassion.
Are you okay?
Ben stares back at Frankie, irritated.
So why are we really here?
Frankie removes a crinkled envelope from her pocket.
A day after the incident, a few hours after I heard Jimmy had died, I received a letter from him. I couldn't open it at first. It's too much.
Frankie opens the envelope, pulls out a scribbled-on napkin.
It took me a few days, but eventually I came here to read it. His message was transcendent. It gave me hope, peace, but most of all, it helped me understand what he meant by hold them.
So what was in this letter? Another set of lyrics?
Frankie reads the letter.
No, it was a quote from a poem. Hold the hand of the child within you. For this child...
Nothing is impossible. Paulo Coelho.
He was Jimmy's favorite writer.
Ben takes out his pocket-sized leather booklet, holds it next to the letter.
What's that?
Beth, my wife, made this for me. It's filled with quotes from Paulo Coelho, her favorite writer.
Ben rubs his thumb over the embossed B4B on the cover. Frankie studies Ben's face.
You're not like that other guy. You're different.
Ben looks back at Frankie, curious and confused.
What other guy?
The reporter who came a couple years ago to research the incident.
Exterior police station day. George stands on the driver's side of his police cruiser. Ben leans against the passenger side.
Matt Darby? That's Nick? Yeah, he came here about the incident. Fooled us good, too. We believed, he believed. But he ended up ghosting us, too.
Darby? Huh. He was an up-and-coming paparazzo, and then the wheels came off. There were lots of rumors that he flew the cuckoo's nest.
If he was loco, he faked the hell out of it.
And you told him what you told me.
The whole nine.
Weird. Very weird.
From your lips, bro. From your lips.
Interior, scuttlebutt office, day. Ronnie is perched on his seat next to Sarah. He is staring intently at Selena's office while eating popcorn. Selena is arguing with Phil.
What are you doing?
Trying to read the lips.
You can do that?
I sort of dated this girl who was deaf, so I tried to teach myself sign language and lip reading.
Okay, then. What are they saying?
Mice ride bikes because clowns fart pudding. Huh? That can't be right.
Guessing the deaf girl swiped left.
Sarah turns her back to Ronnie, gets back to work. Ronnie's phone rings. He answers, mouthful of popcorn.
Oh, it's Ronnie.
Intercut. Ben is in his car, early 1970s Ford Mustang.
It's Ben.
Ben who?
Chambers.
Ronnie spits out his popcorn.
Sorry, Mr. Chambers. I didn't recognize the number.
Don't sweat it, kid. I called to see if you're up for a favor.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of favor?
The my eyes only kind of favor.
Ronnie looks over at Selena's office again. She's angrily pointing a finger at Phil.
Like cloak and dagger?
Yep.
Ronnie hones in on Selena's angry face, swallows hard.
Okay.
I want you to look up a reporter named Matt Darby. Need anything and everything about him from the last 3 years. Got it?
Darby Matt. I'm on it. Like someone who's on, like really on.
Ronnie silently admonishes himself.
Can you get it done by tomorrow?
Sure. Should I?
Ben ends the call. End intercut.
Okay. I can do this. Yeah?
Ronnie sees Selena still angrily berating Phil.
Yeah, I really shouldn't do this.
Interior Selena's office, continuous. Selena is drinking a large glass of wine.
Why is he taking so long?
What's the rush, Phil?
Because when the Vatican wants something done, it gets done.
Guess someone's got to vouch for your corrupt ass at the pearl gates.
Corrupt? Pot? Kettle, Selena? Don't you forget it.
So you remind me. Every day.
Phil leans forward.
Maybe your boy's lacking motivation.
Meaning?
Meaning those documents he wants to unseal will stay sealed if this drags on much longer.
Watch it, Phil. Gaslight my friend.
And what, Selena? What?
Selena bites her tongue. Phil grabs his coat.
You used to be a prima ballerina, the toast of the town. But then you lost your cavalier and went into hiding. Now you're like a washed-up burlesque dancer running a seedy club. And I'm tired of paying for the show. So get it done, or Ben won't be the only one who loses what he wants.
Phil exits Selena's office. Selena downs her drink, throws her glass across the room.
Damn it, Benji.
Exterior, West Point Military Academy, day. Parking lot. Ben leans against his car, snacking on peanuts. A motorcycle pulls up opposite Ben's car. Susie Kawachika gets off the bike and removes her helmet. She's the pilot from Maram, Ben had remembered. Susie notices Ben. She smiles, a kind, open smile.
Captain Kawachika?
Professor Kawachika these days, but you can call me Susie. You are?
Ben Chambers. I'm a reporter. I was stationed at Barham 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. How can I help?
Well, I'm working on a story about someone who was under your command.
Who?
Sentinel.
Susie's demeanor stiffens.
Sentinel.
Ben nods back. Interior, Ben's car, day. Ben drives back to the town after his visit with Susie. He seems animated and lost in thought. Ben's phone rings. It's Selena. This time he answers. Intercut between Ben's hotel room and Selena's office. Selena sits on a couch.
Lena!
Finally, are you done?
Soon.
Soon. You promised 2 days.
I'm nearly there.
Bill's getting cranky.
How cranky?
Cranky enough to make threats.
Bark or bite?
Snarling with intent.
I'm close, but having a hard time finding holes in their story.
Then expand the search grid. Fair?
Fair?
Selena ends the call, clearly feeling frustrated. End intercut. Ben frowns, also feeling frustrated. Interior, the flower and plant store, day. Ben speaks with Edith Rogers, the pious woman from the town hall, as she waters a variety of plants and flowers. On the shop walls is a poster of the town hall fundraiser.
So this mystery man, did he whisper anything to you?
No.
And you believe it was a...
Ghost?
Yeah.
Edith snips away at a set of roses.
I was once a Girl Scout. Back when being a Girl Scout meant more than selling chocolate mint cookies.
Okay.
There was a girl in my troop. Her name was Paulina. She was deaf and dumb, but sweet as a button. We all took great care of her. But one night, we were camping on the outskirts of town, and right before lights went out, we discovered Paulina had gone missing. Pretty soon the whole town was searching for her. And you know where we found Paulina?
I've got a clue.
In the town hall, kneeling in front of the Fairfax altar. She was in some sort of trance, frantically babbling in a language I couldn't understand. Yet a number of people in the room could make out various words from different dialects: French, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, Latin, and others.
She was speaking in tongues.
Until that night, she had never uttered a single word. And when she fell out of that trance, she never spoke again.
How's the story connected to...
Later, when we returned to the campsite in the morning, we found that everything had been swallowed up by a big, massive sinkhole.
I see. She saved you, like Jimmy.
Edith holds out a red rose to Ben. She smiles.
One of many such stories, Mr. Chambers. The Fairfax altar is a holy place. I couldn't say why, but I do know there's a reason and a way for everything under God's embrace.
Ben bites his lip, annoyed.
Why do you call it the Fairfax altar?
Well, if you'd researched the history of our town, you'd already know the answer to that question.
Edith takes back the rose. Interior Town Hall day. It's late in the afternoon. The sun is starting to set. Ben enters the large hall/library. No one is around. Ben goes over to the Fairfax altar to examine it closely. As he leans down over the back of the Fairfax altar, his B4B booklet falls from his top pocket onto the floor. Ben picks up the booklet, pauses, notices writing engraved into the underside of the altar. Ben turns on his phone's flashlight to read the etchings. Proterge eos standum eos teneat eos.
I thought your return was highly unlikely.
Ben, startled, sits up and bangs his head on the altar. He sees Padre standing opposite him.
And yet, here I am, Padre.
What brings you back?
Research.
Anything I can assist with?
Ben looks around the hall.
Trying to find something about the history of this place.
Padre genially smiles back at him, at Ben. Walks over to a smaller bookshelf tucked behind the Fairfax altar.
We have some... Well, we have to know where to look. Here we are.
Padre pulls out a thin book. It looks homemade. Padre places it on the altar. Ben reads the title, An Illustrated History of Seraphim by Cynthia Rafferty.
Limited edition. Actually, there's only one edition.
Cynthia Rafferty. Any chance she was...
Married to Norm Clancy? Yes. She wrote this when she was 16. Won first prize that year at the county's art contest.
Ben opens up the book. Insert. Illustrations from the book. The illustrations are drawn with charcoal.
The town of Seraphim was established in 1822 by John Fairfax.
As Padre reads, the charcoal illustrations animate. Image of a large boat at sea. On the deck of the boat stand the Fairfax family.
Fairfax immigrated from England to the United States with his 4 children and wife Nora.
Image. A dozen pioneers travel on horses and wagons.
With other pioneers, they traveled north in search of land to settle.
Image. The pioneers battling the cold and disease.
It was a perilous journey, marred by fatal disease and deadly weather.
Image. All the other pioneers are gone. Just the Fairfax family remain. As they push on through the bad weather, one by one, each member of the family disappears.
Within 3 months, John's family, who had left home in search of a better life, were all gone.
Image. John Fairfax stands in front of a massive oak tree.
John's grief became too much to bear.
Image. John ties a noose to the oak tree.
He could see no reason to go on.
Image. John sits atop a horse. The rope tied to the tree. Rain starts to fall. John closes his eyes, readying himself.
But then...
Image. Lightning strikes the tree, splits it in half.
The extraordinary happened.
Image. John carves the base, trunk of the tree. He uses the rest of the wood to build a small hall around the trunk that he has carved into an altar.
John wasn't devout, but he knew something divine had occurred. He believed it was a message to help others like him.
Image. People arrive at the hall John built. Soon, other small wooden cabins emerge around John's hall.
People came from far and wide. They didn't know what drew them to this place. They just knew it was where they needed to be.
Image. The town has grown. A sign on the road reads, Welcome to the town of Seraphim.
Within 20 years, the town's population had grown to 230. People of all backgrounds and faith made Seraphim their home.
Image. A small ember drifts through the wind until it lands on John's hall. Before long, a huge fire consumes the hall.
Then tragedy struck.
Image. Smoke and ash is all that remains of the hall. But as that smoke and ash blow away, John can be seen draped over the altar he had built.
Somehow, the altar was undamaged.
Image. A gravestone. The epitaph reads, Here lies John Fairfax, husband, father, and founder of Seraphim. End insert. Back to scene.
As you can see, the hall was rebuilt.
And they kept the altar?
The roots of that big oak are still attached to the Fairfax altar and will run directly beneath us.
Ben looks down at his feet and then looks up at posters on the wall advertising the upcoming fundraising event.
Is this a historical landmark?
Yes, but there's a statute of limitations on legacy landmarks. Ours is set to expire next month.
But if you raise enough funds...
We can extend the statute 10 years.
And if you don't?
The land is available for sale.
Ben is about to ask another question, but his phone vibrates. Sees that it is a text from Ronnie. Got what you wanted. Ben looks up at Padre.
Hey, I gotta go, but thanks for the history lesson, Padre.
Anytime.
Ben looks around the hallway again and then leaves. Padre watches as he goes and smiles to himself. Exterior park day. Ben sits on a bench in a park square. He's on the phone with Ronnie. Intercut. Ronnie is in the scuttlebutt office, hiding in the supply closet. So what did you find?
Darby's living off the grid in a small town near Cancun.
So the rumors were true?
I poked around, and from what I can tell, it was a hatchet job. Someone must have wanted his life ripped apart. He was accused of his life ripped apart. I poked around, and for what I can tell, it was a hatchet job. Someone must have wanted his life ripped apart. He was accused of drug addiction, gambling, infidelity, plagiarism. On top of that, there were stories about him claiming to be William Shakespeare reincarnated.
Sources?
Mostly tabloid articles, online forums, Twitter sphere.
Huh. Think it was coordinated?
Maybe. I'd require someone who has fingers on a lot of media outlets.
Ben thinks for a moment.
Up for one more favor?
A young man opens the supply closet door, sees Ronnie sitting alone in the dark.
Yeah, Mom. The rash showed up again. All over my butt.
What?
The young man slowly closes the supply closet door.
Sorry about that. Had a visitor. Anyways, a favor? Sure, you bet.
It's a big one.
How big?
End intercut. Interior Archdiocese day. Ronnie walks into a large, grand cathedral.
Yep. This is big. Very big.
A middle-aged male priest intercepts Ronnie.
Services don't start until 6 p.m.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
Ronnie turns and starts to walk away, stops himself, gathers up some courage, and turns back towards the priest.
I'm not here for services, Father. I'd like to talk to the Cardinal Baron.
The Cardinal no longer takes confessional, but there are...
Well, sir, I don't need confessional. I mean, I do, but there's a lot I should probably confess. Like, I have this cousin.
You can contact his secretary to arrange a meeting.
He can't wait. It's kind of urgent.
You still need an appointment.
Okay. Phil Noxon.
The priest's eyes widen in concern. Interior Cardinal Verone's office continues. Ronnie enters the office. Behind a desk is Cardinal Verone, mid-60s, eating.
I take it Phil dug up something and wants to know if it should be buried?
Maybe. It's about a story you asked him to ask us to investigate.
I'm unaware of any such request.
It's about a ghost who showed up during the storm and saved everyone. When I say it out loud, it sounds
absurd.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I still gotta know if you made the ask.
No. Besides, the Vatican has a team for investigating the arcane.
Okay. So, are you totally sure?
I may be getting on in years, but I can assure you, young man, I'm in full control of my faculties. As for my patients.
Ronnie smiles back, embarrassed. Interior Police Station, Dante's office, day. Ben sits with Dante at the sheriff's desk.
Let's see. He was wearing a green pilot uniform. Helmet still on.
Did he say anything?
Not a peep.
You think it could have been a prank?
Do you?
Possibly. Do you have a theory?
Push come to shove and I had to guess, I'd say maybe it was one of the Coast Guard guys who crashed outside the town. Maybe.
Crash. What crash?
Interior, Coast Guard helicopter hangar. Day. Ben follows Coast Guard pilot Ricky Gonzalez, mid-30s, as he runs diagnostics on his helicopter.
Storm was the Cat 3 by the time it made landfall.
So where was the crash? In proximity to the town?
About 5 miles out, give or take.
Would it have been possible for one of the pilots or the medic to walk from that crash into town and back again before dying?
They all died on Macbeth. So I'd say that's a hard no, sir.
Right. Yeah.
If that's all you need, I gotta get back to it. Big snowstorm might swing through this way more.
Thanks for your help. Good luck.
Ben looks at two pilots entering the hangar. They're both wearing orange jumpsuits. Ben recalls something.
Coast Guard always wears orange.
Ben walks through a waiting room next to the hangar. A TV hangs on a wall. Something on screen grabs Ben's attention. Will, the weatherman, is reporting on a snowstorm heading towards their region. On TV screen.
As you can see, we got ourselves a big un heading our way, but don't fret, folks, it won't be anything like the beast from the east 3 years ago. Who could forget that?
The screen shows archival footage. Will, the weatherman, is reporting from outside a truck as wind and rain blow furiously around him. Behind Will is the Seraphim Town Hall. The rain comes to a stop. Will looks around, astonished.
It seems like the storm's over, folks.
A shadowy figure in the background walks into the town hall. Archival footage finishes. Ben gets an idea. Interior WPIJ local TV station office day. Ben stands in a cramped office. A sign on the wall for the TV station reads, "Start your day with WPIJ." A female producer, early 20s, enters the room and sits behind her desk. She seems animated and eager.
Well, when the receptionist told me Ben Chambers was here, I thought she was joking, but wow, it's really you.
In the flesh.
What brings you here? Is Selena Richardson recruiting?
Ben notices a bunch of notepads and books on the desk. Mostly educational books about journalism and foreign affairs.
Actually, I'm trying to locate some footage from 3 years ago. Will, the weatherman? The big storm?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll need to get sign off.
I need to keep this off the bugs.
I'm not really allowed to sign out.
Selena's a close friend. I bet she'd love to meet the producer who helped with this top secret project of hers.
Well, I mean, I guess I could bend the rules just this once.
Ben writes something down on a notepad.
Standing. Just send the raw footage to this email address. Thanks.
Ben tears off the page and hands it to the producer.
Okay, it might take a day or two.
Selena's gonna adore you.
Producer lights up the room with her smile. Ben leaves the office. As the door shuts, he can hear the producer from the other side.
Don't you want to know my name?
Ben keeps walking. Exterior, hotel, day. Ben parks his Mustang behind the hotel he's staying at. Ben's phone pings. It's a text message from Ronnie. A cross emoji, followed by a red X emoji, and a poop emoji. Ben gets out of the car and notices a large stretch limo idling a few yards away. A burly driver, mid-40s, stands outside the driver's side. The passenger window of the limo rolls down. It's Phil Knox. Ben's demeanor tightens.
Speak of the devil.
Exterior, Phil's limousine. Ben sits in the back seat next to Phil.
Selena promises me you're nearly done.
Getting closer every day.
I thought this was open and shut.
Ben pauses and faces Phil, looks him in the eye.
How much is it worth?
How much is what worth?
Cardinal Verone says hello.
Phil grins and nods to himself. He looks out the window.
Tell me, Ben, When you look at this town, what do you see?
History, community, an interesting story.
I see opportunity. I see $120 million in revenue over 10 years on a $15 million investment. I see people from the city who come here in the summer to go boating on the lake. And I visit in the winter for the skiing. I see jobs. I see security for a town the time has forgotten.
No, I think you see a cash cow you've been waiting to milk dry. Only problem is this pesky story. The same story you sent Matt Darby to shoot down 2 years ago. The same story you've been trying to keep out of the public domain because you're afraid if the outside world actually believes what happened here, then they'll receive all the money they need to renew the lease on the land. You saw an opportunity to use me to your advantage.
All deals are based on leverage. Who has the most to lose and the most to gain? You have much to gain, and Selena a lot to lose. So whatever morality hiccup you're experiencing, I suggest you hold your breath and finish what I asked you to start. Or you will gain nothing, and Selena will lose everything.
Ben frowns, clenches his fist.
Why should I trust you?
As my good friend Cardinal Verone would say, have faith, my son.
Ben nods, bites his lip in frustration.
Fine.
The limo stops.
2 days.
The passenger door opens. Ben lets himself out. Exterior town street. The limo drives away. Ben looks around to get his bearings, notices he's been dropped off in front of the funeral parlor. Ben shivers.
Seriously?
Exterior, Phil's limousine. Phil rolls down the privacy divider between the back seat and the front of the limo. He addresses the driver.
He may need motivation.
Yes, sir.
If so, use local talent.
Understood.
Phil raises the privacy divider, opens up his phone, and makes a call.
Get up here and talk some sense into your boy before it's too late.
Interior, hotel lobby, day. Ben rambles into the hotel lobby, bedraggled.
Chambers?
Ben stops, turns to see Susie Kawachika sitting in a chair. Ben straightens himself.
Professor.
Susie.
Susie.
I got it.
Ben looks back at her inquisitively.
You were right.
Ben's face lights up. Exterior, Norm's ranch house, day. Ben pulls up in his car outside the front porch. At the same time, Susie pulls up on her motorcycle. Norm is waiting on the porch. Susie walks straight up to Norm and gives him a warm, loving hug. Norm smiles.
It's been a minute.
Too many.
What brings you by?
This weirdo here tracked me down at West Point.
Norm looks inquisitively at Ben.
She bought something.
It's classified, so could only share it with you in person.
Norm is intrigued. Interior, conservatory. Ben, Susie, and Norm sit in chairs inside a covered porch/conservatory overlooking a patio and back garden. Norm points to the recorder.
A flight recorder?
The flight recording.
Susie presses play. Ben looks out to the backyard. Flashback as the flight recorder plays audio. The backyard morphs into a sunny summer day from 20 years ago. Young Jimmy plays in the yard. His mom, Cynthia, and his dad, Norm, sit on the patio watching him. Jimmy has 2 toy jet planes running through the yard. Archangel, this is Paradise. We have an Alpha unit stranded and surrounded. Requesting priority fire mission, 180 clicks from your vector. Over. Jimmy takes the toy planes around a swing set.
Copy, Paradise. Negative on the request. Bingo on fuel. Can't reach location and RTB. Over.
Copy, Archangel. Stand down. Over. A few seconds of static over the radio. One of Jimmy's toy planes diverges from the other jet plane.
Sentinel, you've broken formation. Return to my vector. Over.
Jimmy puts down one of the toy planes, continues flying the other toward a sandbox in the garden.
Negative. Our boys need help, Skipper.
The toy plane approaches a building block in the sandbox. Green toy soldiers are placed inside the structure. Blue toy soldiers surround the outside of the structure.
Lieutenant Clancy, bingo fuel for RTB. Do you understand? Over.
Good copy.
Static fills the radio comms.
Paradise, change of plan. Archangel 2, call sign Sentinel. Will execute fire mission. Over.
Copy that.
Lieutenant Clancy, SNR will track you for exfil after ejection.
Copy that. See you on the other side, Skipper. Over and out.
Jimmy's toy plane flies over the building block structure.
Sentinel, this is Alpha 1 requesting emergency close air support. 010 bearing from our position. Target's tagged. Over.
Jimmy's toy plane gets lower and closer to the structure.
Bogies Alpha, Mike, Foxtrot, Alpha 1. I got you. Over and out.
Jimmy pretends to drop a bomb outside the building block structure, clears a path for the green soldiers to leave. He then flies the toy plane off into the setting sun. End flashback. The recording stops. Ben looks at Norm. Both are dumbfounded.
The pilot who saved us? Saved me that day? It was Jimmy.
Ben had a hunch. That's why he wanted me to track down the flight recording.
I had no idea.
What happened after the fire mission?
Canopy malfunction.
Susie puts a comforting hand on Norm's shoulder.
When did you guys meet?
After I retired from active duty, I took some time off, roamed around from state to state, then ended up here. Wanted to meet the father of the bravest pilot I've ever commanded.
She connected me to the Veteran Affairs Committee, who helped fund everything we do here for the vets.
Ben takes it all in, looks around at the various vets riding and cleaning horses.
Pillar to post.
Norm looks at Ben smiling, cocks his head like he recognized something. Later, on the front porch, Ben's with Norm as Susie leaves on her motorcycle. Once again, Norm notices Ben's smile. Norm then looks at Ben's old Ford Mustang, curiosity growing on his face. Ben notices.
I tend to get that same look anytime I hear the word quantum.
Norm hesitates.
Mission to overstep.
Ben looks back at Norm, can see how serious he is.
Permission granted?
Do you have kids?
Ben sighs, looks away, unsure if he wants to answer. That's when he sees Beth's apparition again in the pasture. Blood drips down her forehead.
Beth and I were 18. We'd only been together a few months when she got pregnant. We didn't know what to do, so her very Catholic parents decided Beth would bring the baby to term and then give it up for adoption.
Did you ever try again?
The baby arrived 7 weeks early, and because of the complications, we were one and done.
Norm nods to himself.
Why'd you ask?
Curious. Oh. Coming by the town fundraiser tomorrow?
I'll try to stop by.
Norm's still lost in thought. This doesn't escape Ben. Later, Norm watches Ben drive away. Norm reaches into his pocket, pulls out a set of keys hooked to a pair of dog tags. Exterior, Norm's ranch barn. Norm stands in front of a small double-door barn, thinking. He uses the keys attached to the dog tags to open a padlock holding the doors closed. The space is old, dusty. It's been converted into a workshop garage. There's a car in the middle of the space, covered by a tarp. Norm stares at the car, unsure. He looks at the dog tags again, contemplating, then decides to remove the tarp. Interior, Ben's hotel room, day. Ben's at his desk. His laptop is open. He's having a video call with Ronnie. Intercut. Ben in hotel room, Ronnie at Scuttlebutt office. There's 5 empty cans of Red Bull on Ronnie's desk.
Okay. I went through the footage with PI Jason, and dude, it's gray.
Opening it now.
Archival video footage displays on Ben's laptop.
I cleaned up the background pixels to get a closer focus on the building. Look at minute 8.46 and 23 seconds.
Ben forwards the footage, sees a slightly blurry man in an unmistakable green pilot uniform enter the building.
Okay, that's our guy.
Now forward it to 8.49 in 5 seconds.
Ben forwards the footage. On the screen, he sees the pilot exit the building. There's a small flash of light that comes down from the night sky on top of the pilot, and then he disappears.
Well, you don't see that every day. Could the footage have been doctored?
I showed it to a buddy who's like a deep fake guru, and he said it was legit. Like legit.
Great work, kid.
Will Selena kill me if she finds out if I've been helping you?
That's a certainty, but not before she flays you alive.
Ben smiles and winks.
Can't win the lottery without buying a ticket, my friend.
Ben ends the call. Ronnie looks over at Selena's empty office, gulps,
I hate playing the lottery.
and intercuts. Back to Ben's hotel room. Ben returns to the footage, rewatches it. Interior hotel bar, night. Ben sits at the hotel bar reading notes while he eats. He sees his glass is empty, gets the attention of the barman.
Another?
Make that 2 on the double.
Ben swivels to see Selena behind him.
Lena?
Barman delivers 2 shots of whiskey.
Why are you still here?
I take it Phil sent you.
Don't test me. Phil's about to 86 scuttlebutt, and besides, doesn't he have something you want?
Yeah. But why does it feel like I'm making a deal with the devil?
What does that mean?
He's using us to line his pockets. I'm guessing you already knew that. I'm also guessing you were able to get Scuttlebutt up and running because you did Phil a favor and made his Matt Darby problem go away.
Selena glares, taps her fingernails on the table.
That was the price of admission.
Wrecking someone's career.
Sometimes you gotta hold your nose and take the medicine.
That's not us. That's not who we are.
Not who we were, but this is us now. So save your self-righteous hypocrisy for someone who gives a damn.
Ben downs his shot, looks at a mirror behind the bar.
As John used to quote, above all, to thine own self be true. Who are we?
Selena sits back angrily, folds her arms.
You want to know who I am? A woman who wakes up most nights screaming. A girl too scared to sleep in the dark. A soul who sent her mate to his death. Who had to watch the man she loves killed on Al Jazeera. That's who I am. And what about you? You think Beth would approve of your jihad against fairy tales and folklore?
That's a distortion.
Shut up, Ben. I am not interested in your justifications. I just need you to pull up your big boy pants and put this story to bed.
Ben looks in the mirror again. He can see Beth's apparition. A drop of blood trickles down her forehead.
But what?
What if it's true?
You gotta be kidding me.
Ben looks away.
Oh, you're being serious.
Mm-hmm.
If this Jimmy guy rose from the ashes and was serving us these drinks, it wouldn't change squat. Just do your job.
And if I don't?
Selena downs a shot, hesitates.
Before I drove here, Phil gave me a sealed envelope from the church, but told me you can only have it once you complete the task.
Seriously. You do that.
Deliver me a takedown by 5 tomorrow or walk. Those are your options.
Selena stands as Ben glares angrily at her. She walks away. Selena exits the bar and for a moment looks ashamed. Ben shakes his head, disconsolate. Interior hotel room night. Ben's been up most of the night, trying to decide what to do. Ben's laptop is open. The video file Ronnie sent him is on the screen. His finger hovers over the delete button. His bloodshot eyes stare on the screen. He looks to the side of the laptop and sees his B4B booklet. He opens it up, and a folded postcard drops on his lap. It's the Welcome to Seraphim postcard he had received. Ben looks at it again, shakes his head, confused. As he is about to put it down, he notices something about the postcard's stamp, something familiar. Ben holds his phone over the stamp to magnify the image with the phone's camera. The stamp shows 3 people in a field, beholding a Messiah figure in silhouette. Behind them is a rising sun over the Brazilian national flag. The people consist of a soldier, a farmer, and a nurse. Below each of the people are the words, Protere eos, sendanum eos, tenaiat eos. Ben goes back to his computer, pulls up a search bar. He types Policoeo, art, stamp. Ben sees the search results, clicks on a link. He sits back in his chair, shocked. Oh my God. Interior Town Hall Day. The Town Hall fundraiser is wrapping up. A half dozen townsfolk are still in the hall, counting what they raised. Frankie, wearing a Santa hat, Norm, and George are all there. George is off duty. His motorcycle helmet with the angel wings is on a table, next to one of the bookshelves. Edith and an older man count the donations. She looks up at Frankie and gives a tiny, disappointed shake of the head. Frankie sighs.
There's still time. We could do this.
Edith nods back and continues to count the donations. Ben enters via the back door. He looks annoyed. He ushers Frankie, George, and Norm over to a small table.
You missed the festivities, my man.
Norm stares at Ben, worried.
I have questions.
Norm, Frankie, and George all look at each other, confused. Then they all sit at the table next to the bookshelf. Ben takes the Welcome to Seraphim postcard out of his pocket and puts it on the table.
I gotta hand it to you. For a moment there, you got me.
What are you talking about?
Okay. So that's how you want to play this?
What do you think we're playing, Ben?
Ben points to the stamp on the folk postcard.
Paulo Coelho?
Isn't that the writer dude Jimmy's always quoting?
What about him?
He designed this stamp for Brazil's 150th year anniversary. It's the one and only piece of art he's created. But you already knew that.
Jimmy had one like that in his stamp collection, right, Frankie?
Yes, he did, Norm.
Ben laughs callously.
What's the joke?
Everyone's confused.
This is a setup from the start, right? I mean, the note Jimmy supposedly sent Frankie, the flight recording, the etchings on the Fairfax altar, this postcard, everything.
We never sent you a postcard, brother.
Put it out, I'm not a mark.
No one said you were.
It's just something I don't get. This stamp. It's one thing setting up a grift, but using a $30,000 stamp? I mean, no offense, but I doubt any of you can afford to throw away that kind of money. Especially if you're serious about saving this place. Maybe that's also a part of the scam.
Hey, that's not fair. We've been completely honest with you.
Bro, when we heard you was coming, we weren't gonna say nothing. Ain't no way we let Scuttlebutt do the dirty on Jimmy. But Frankie said we should give you a chance. So we did.
None of us would turn my son's death into a hoax. Never. Do you understand?
Ben looks at them all. He can tell they're sincere. All right, Ben looks at them all and takes a deep, calming breath. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices the strange man wearing the elf costume lurking near Edith and the money.
None of this makes sense.
Ben, there's something else you should know. Yesterday,
Elf man pushes the old man away from the collection money, grabs the money box, and makes a run for it.
Hey, stop!
You've taken the money!
Ben reaches the man first. They tussle momentarily, and then the elf man kicks Ben backward. Ben falls and slams the back of his head against the floor, knocking him unconscious. The elf man pauses for a second, then makes a run for the door. George thinks quickly, grabs his helmet, and throws it through the air, and it strikes Elfman in the head, knocking him to the ground. George handcuffs Elfman. When he pulls down their imp mask, it's Tony, the guy who used to deal drugs to Frankie. George gets on his phone.
This is Charlie Upper 44. We have a 10-132 at the town center. We need a bus forthwith. Multiple injuries, perps down and under control.
Frankie notices Ben is unconscious. She goes to him, checks his breathing.
He's not breathing.
Norm goes over to Frankie.
Hold him up against you.
Ben's eyes are closed. Ben's unconscious dream. Exterior city street. Ben's dream. The street where Beth died. Ben's pale face is turned to the side, her head resting on her brown leather satchel. Blood drips from her forehead. Small snowflakes fall and rest in her hair. Ben's face is opposite hers. She stares into Ben's eyes, but unlike before, this time she smiles.
Protege eos. Sanandum eos. Tiniet eos.
Back to scene. Interior town hall day. Frankie holds up Ben's head against her chest.
He swallowed his tongue.
Norm opens Ben's mouth and fixes the problem.
Come back. Ben, come on. Come back.
Ben coughs and wakes up. He can see Norm, Frankie, and George staring at him. They all smile relieved.
Progere eos, sanandum eos, teneat eos.
Norm, George, and Frankie stare at Ben, baffled. George looks at Norm.
Concussion?
Ben smiles assuredly and points to each of them.
It's Latin. Progere eos, protect them. Sanandum eos, heal them. Teneat eos, hold them. It's on the stamp. The Fairfax altar. Beth said it in my dream. Them is me.
Oh, no doubt. This bell is running good.
Frankie hands Ben some water. Ben drinks it slowly. He looks at Frankie.
How about that? Church heist.
Frankie smiles. Sirens can be heard approaching outside. Ben looks at Norm.
Hey, what was that thing you wanted to tell me?
They all look at Norm. Interior barnhouse garage day. Ben's with Norm in front of the barn.
Sure you're okay?
Yeah. Good.
Norm opens the double doors. In the middle of this space is a car covered by a tarp. Norm removes the tarp. Underneath is a late 1960s red Ford Mustang. It's clearly a work in progress restoration.
Jimmy bought it before he deployed. Wanted to restore her back to glory.
Kid had good taste.
Jimmy got his grease monkey paws from me. As for taste, now, that originated from the source.
Norm opens the car door, grabs something from the glove compartment. He removes a document and walks it over to Ben.
We got lucky with Jimmy.
What do you mean?
Norm gives Ben the document. He sighs heavily.
Well, you see, Ben, with adoption, you never know how the kid will turn out. There's what you can mold with nurture. Then there's what's already been decided by nature. And now we've met. I can see why we got lucky with the latter.
Norm looks at Ben and then puts a hand on his shoulder.
He had your eyes and your smile.
Ben reads the document in a state of bewilderment. Exterior Norm's ranch day. Ben and Norm walk to the porch. Ben's a million miles away.
Why? I mean, why now?
Something about the way you smiled yesterday. I could see Jimmy all over your face. So I did something I swore I'd never do. Not without Jimmy's consent.
So, till yesterday, you had no idea?
None. Swear to God.
The others?
I told them this morning.
Ben reads the document again.
After Beth died, I petitioned the church to unseal the records. But they wouldn't play ball. At least till now. I wanted to find out for so long. I wanted Beth to... I don't know. And now I know I feel ashamed.
Why?
I mean, look at me. Borderline addict. Total hack. Shadow of a man.
He wouldn't see it that way.
Then how?
He'd see his father.
I'm sure he'd like what he sees.
Then maybe it's time we met.
Ben's perplexed by Norm's statement. Exterior cemetery day. Ben and Norm enter a small cemetery next to the town. Waiting by a gravestone is Frankie and George. Ben reads the gravestone engraving. James Clancy, beloved son, cherished friend, soulmate.
Ben, this is Jimmy, your son.
Norm looks at Frankie and George, gestures for them to give Ben some space. They turn and start to walk away. The stray dog from the park in the group home sits at the edge of the graveyard looking on.
8 minutes.
Frankie, Norm, and George pause, turn to face Ben.
Took the ambulance 8 minutes to reach her. She died alone, cold, and scared. This amazing, beautiful, generous woman who believed in karma, kismet, miracles, and all things magical. Yet when the time came, where was her miracle?
Ben holds his pocket-sized B4B book.
I also grew up in the system. I was that mongrel no one wanted.
Ben places the B4B booklet on Jimmy's gravestone.
I didn't know the meaning of family until I found Beth. She was my forever home. So when she died, I went back to being a mangy lion.
We all fall down, brother. We all feel alone. But if there's one thing Jimmy taught us, it's okay to ask for help.
Just wish Beth was here to meet Jimmy. They sound so much alike.
Ben grabs the B4B booklet from the gravestone.
What are you going to do now?
You know, I get asked why I write these articles. At first, it's because I was angry. Felt like all those things that Beth believed were toxic. Because when it mattered, none of it helped. And then after a while, I just...
You don't have to explain yourself to us, Ben. Not now, not ever.
I want to help you. I do. But telling the story is like admitting Beth wasn't worthy of a miracle. I don't know if I can do that.
You're part of this story now, Ben. Whether you tell it or not, you're a part of us. Whether you like it or not.
Ben looks at Jimmy's gravestone and then Jimmy's family. Interior Town Hall, day. Back in the library/hall. Sits opposite the Fairfax altar. He's alone.
Crazy day, right?
Ben turns to see Padre standing quietly in the aisle.
There.
So what now?
I feel like some facts are better off fiction, and maybe their story should just be left alone.
As you know, stories contain power. They can give voice to the voiceless, transform a cause into a revolution, and turn despair into hope.
The world's full of skeptics and trolls, Padre. They wouldn't believe any of it.
Or maybe people aren't as cynical as you think. Maybe what they crave is an impossible story told by an improbable person to touch their hearts and ignite their souls.
I wish it were that simple. But any direction I choose comes at a price.
Life is full of crossroads, big and small. And if we have faith, it doesn't matter which direction we take, as long as it'll lead us to where we need to go.
No offense, but my faith in the church was equal to my distrust of karma.
Forget the church. I'm talking about faith yourself.
That's also in short supply.
And karma?
Karma is a coping mechanism for those who can't accept that life is just unfair. Sometimes there is no justice.
And what drives your crusade?
It is. I mean, it has.
And is there a possibility this quest could be cloaking your true desire?
My true desire.
Padre sits.
Okay. Since your wife died, what is it you really want to know?
There's nothing to know. She's dead.
Have you considered that you might be searching for an answer to a question that has no answer?
What does that mean?
The answer is the question.
You're not making sense.
What have you been looking for?
An answer!
Again, what is the question?
I wanted to know... Is she okay? Is she okay?
Padre puts a calming hand on Ben's shoulder.
Why do you need to know she's okay?
Ben stands, touches the pulpit.
Always felt like I was the unwanted runt of the litter. Until Beth came along. And then she was gone.
You wanted to know Beth was okay. Because you needed to know.
That I wasn't the unwanted runt. And I couldn't find an answer.
Because there's no answer. It's a choice about what we believe.
Make that sound easy.
Jimmy's family embody his spirit, which is how they believe he's okay. Because they decided how his death would define their lives, which gave them something priceless in return.
Peace.
Purpose.
Ben ponders Padre's words, wipes his eyes and flashes a faint smile, looks Padre up and down again.
Wisdom in all shapes and sizes.
Haven't heard that before.
Learn something new every day.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Padre smiles and nods. Ben looks at his watch.
I gotta go, Padre.
Of course.
Ben nods back, gets up.
If you're heading south, you should stop by Lillian's Diner in Nisha. Her peach cobbler with the side of caramel ice cream is outstanding.
Thanks for the suggestion, but I'm going in the opposite direction.
Well, if you change your mind.
Sure. Hey. Good talk, Padre.
Yes. Good talk, man.
Ben nods, gives Padre a slight wave, and then leaves. Interior Ben's car, day. Ben drives in his car, distracted and lost in thought. Ben looks at his watch, sees that it's 5:15 p.m. His phone rings. He sees it's Selena. He frowns. When he looks up, a bright blade of light pierces his eyes, forcing him to slightly swerve the car. A big truck going in the other direction has drifted partially into the opposite lane. The swerve caused by the bright light helps Ben avoid a head-on collision with the truck. His car skids over to the side of the road untouched. The phone continues to ring. Ben gets his bearings. The car is settled safely at the side of the road. 40 yards ahead is a T-junction. One direction points to Nisham, the other the city. Ben takes a deep, calming breath and smiles. He picks up his phone and sends a text to Selena. Ben starts his car and heads to the T-junction. He turns towards Nisham. Interior Selena's scuttlebutt office, day. Selena stares at her computer, looks at her watch, sees that it's 5:20 p.m., 20 minutes past Ben's deadline. Her phone beeps. She sees a text from Ben. To mine own self be true. Selena throws her phone down on her desk, disgusted. Ronnie knocks on her office door. Selena waves him in. Ronnie walks nervously over to Selena's desk. Selena slides a folder to Ronnie. Ronnie picks it up and browses through the contents.
Welcome to the show, Ace.
Ronnie hesitates.
Isn't this Mr. Chambers' article?
It's yours now. Considering all the help you've been giving him, it should be a piece of cake.
Ronnie starts to say something, but decides against it.
Verone. Darby. The video. You helped him with all of that, right?
Ronnie nods back, looks at his shoes. Selena stares at the picture on her desk of her and the guys in their Kevlar vests, especially John.
Master's in journalism from Stanford.
Ronnie looks up. Selena looks up at Ronnie.
Yeah.
Why scuttlebutt?
Well, it was you. You actually.
Me.
When I was 16, I attended an event for aspiring journalists. You were the keynote speaker.
Ronnie decides to sit on a chair at Selena's desk.
You were there with this British guy. And I remember you were asked what advice you have for young journalists. You said, never fear the facts. Prioritize integrity over prudence. And above all, be true to yourself. I knew then. I wanted to be a reporter. Just like Selena Richards. A freaking legend.
Ronnie looks away, realizes he encroached by sitting down.
How's it working out?
Well, fine, I guess.
Fines for curtains. Try again.
You know the phrase, never meet your heroes? Well, yeah.
Ronnie's mouth drops.
If I haven't been fired before, I guess I am now, right?
Selena looks at a small picture on the wall of her with Ben and Beth on their wedding day. She then looks at an envelope on her desk that's been sealed with an opulent red wax insignia embossed with a cross. Selena grabs a letter opener from her desk. Ronnie flinches.
What are you doing?
I'm getting back on the stage.
Ronnie looks back, completely perplexed. Selena opens the envelope, reads the paper, smiles.
Oh, how about that?
Interior, Lillian's Diner, day. Ben sits at the counter. Lillian, George's mom, stands on the other side.
I was hoping you'd pay me a visit.
Apparently your peach cobbler's heaven sent, so it'd be a sin not to give it a try.
Not sure it's divine, but it won the town pie contest a time or two.
Lillian goes to fetch the pie from a tray display.
Could you put a scoop of caramel ice cream on the side?
Coming right up.
Ben browses over his notes. Lillian serves up the pie.
Thanks.
Lillian turns to walk away, but pauses.
Huh. Ain't that a coincidence? That combo was Jimmy's favorite.
Right. Of course it was.
Not the usual. But then again, Jimmy was always a little Jimmy.
Lillian pulls down a picture from the top shelf.
Last I saw of him was the morning he deployed. So handsome in his uniform.
Mind if I look? I've only seen pictures of him as a kid.
Lillian hands the picture to Ben.
He was only 24, but he had such an old, gentle soul.
Ben stares at the picture. His face twists into shock.
Like he'd always tell me, Aunt Lil, wisdom comes in all shapes and sizes.
Ben's eyes widen. The fork he holds drops from his hand.
You okay, honey?
Ben looks up at Lillian, bewildered. He waves the picture.
Hey, you mind if I borrow this?
Ben throws a $10 bill on the counter and bolts. Lillian watches him go, shakes her head. Interior Town Hall, night. Early evening. Ben bursts into the hallway, out of breath. All is quiet.
Hello! Padre! Jimmy!
Ben goes to the Fairfax altar. He looks at the picture again. Insert picture. Jimmy and Norn outside Lillian's diner. Jimmy's in his navy whites. A closer look at Jimmy's face reveals that he's Padre. End insert. A voice whispers in the silence.
Hey, dummy.
The back doors of the room open. A bright light follows. Ben shields his eyes. He sees two figures silhouetted. The figures hold hands. As they come into focus, Ben can see it's Jimmy, Padre, and Beth. They're smiling. Ben holds Jimmy/Padre's hand. Beth blows Ben a kiss. Ben grabs it and puts it into his heart. He blows Beth a kiss. She repeats the gesture. Ben starts to cry. The light behind Jimmy and Beth fades, as do they. Soon they disappear. All that remains is an open door to the outside world. Ben walks towards the door.
Good talk, Father.
Ben wipes tears from his eyes and smiles.
Yeah. Good talk, son.
Ben walks outside. Sees laying next to his car that same collie shepherd stray dog. Somewhere in the distance he can hear her Christmas carols singing Silent Night. Interior makeshift press room, day. Syria, 1 year later. A picture hangs from a wooden wall. The picture features a Scuttlebutt magazine cover. On the cover, Phil Knox trying to shield his humiliated face from half a dozen cameras. The magazine's caption reads, Teflon Phil, fixed for fraud. Powerful businessman cons church and bribes widower journalist. A subhead at the bottom of the page reads, Scuttlebutt to be rebranded. Selena sits at a table in a hot, dusty press room with flapjack chairs and tables. She looks happy and content. A name tag on her desk reads, Editor-in-Chief, Scuttle News. Ronnie bundles excitedly through the door.
Chief, package for you.
Ronnie places the package on Selena's desk. In the corner of the room is another desk. Sitting there is the young female producer from WPIJ local news station. Ronnie gives her a shy wave. She smiles back. Selena opens the package. A book is inside. She opens the cover and sees a written inscription. You could take the girl out of the fight, but not the fight out of the girl. Selena smiles, looks at a pic on her desk of John and Ben.
Door kicking tonight with the big boy, Sparky?
First time.
Head on a swivel. Fair?
Fair, Chief.
Ronnie leaves the room. Selena looks at the book, closes it. The cover shows an image of an angel statue. The book title reads, Seraphim's Miracle by Ben Chambers. Interior, Seraphim Town Hall, night. A cleanly shaven Ben stands next to the Fairfax altar as he reads from a book to an audience of 30 or so people. Multiple copies of his books, Seraphim's Miracle, are stacked on a table in front of him.
So, as a wise young man once said to me, maybe people aren't as cynical as you think. Maybe what they crave is an impossible story told by an improbable person to touch their hearts and ignite their souls. I hope in some small way I've illuminated yours.
The audience applauds enthusiastically.
Any questions?
Ben sees a hand at the back. Their face is in shadow.
How do you feel about eating ice cream in the middle of winter?
The woman steps forward. Ben sees that it's Frankie. Behind her is Norm and George. Ben smiles back.
Other than strawberry, all for it.
Jimmy's trifecta laugh. Ben silently nods back, smiling. Exterior ice cream parlor night. Snow falls outside. Holiday lights wink and sparkle. Ben, Norm, George, and Frankie sit by a steamed-up window as they eat ice cream, not strawberry, and laugh merrily. Laying on the floor next to the booth is the Collie Shepherd mixed stray dog, now named Padre. Parked outside in front is a fully restored and gleaming late 1960s red Ford Mustang. A reflection in the window of the ice cream parlor shows two figures across the street, holding hands. It's Beth and Jimmy. They watch their loved ones and smile contentedly. A bus passes in front of them. And just like that, they're gone.